Welcome, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. I am really excited to see you. And when I bring on today's guest, we are going to be talking today about contact with non humans, the whys and the wherefores about it. So, guys, I am Joan of Angels. I am one of the co producers, by the way, at Portal to Ascension, and I help Neil produced several events, and we'll talk about a few of them in a minute. And I am also here to help you remember who you are and why you're here. That's why I'm called Joan of Angels. And I help you access your special gifts and your superpowers, the tools that you were given when you came here. So you can check that out at joanofangels.com. And if you're new to the channels, by the way, please like, subscribe, and share both Portal to Ascension and Joan of Angels. We appreciate that. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming shows that are happening. And Tina, if you could show that, we'd appreciate it. So upcoming in April, first of all, you can see the first one is the Pyramid Conference coming up. First weekend of spring and going down. We can continue down to, gosh, it's a little tiny when you look at it this way. The science and, gosh, it is. There it is. Okay, good. Psychology, science, and evidence behind near-death experiences. I thought that's what it was. A very fascinating event. Neil has many experts on that. Then we're going to do a deep dive into the Pleiadians, the ancient present, okay, past and future connections that they've had with Earth. So that's moving into Sunday, April 10th. So be sure to register for that. And then, really exciting, we have Marina Surind. She's going to be talking about making contact with extraterrestrials workshop. So if you have wanted to make contact, register for that one. And then we have a really good conference coming up. They're all good, but this is a 3-day free online conference, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some of your favorite speakers are going to be on that. So register for that. It is free or by donation. And then on Monday, after that, you might as well click on register now, Tina, for that, how to use the intuitive gifts you were born with. So Neil and I have been talking a lot about intuition, how we can help people really get through these times. And this class is going to be about helping you remember how to use the intuition, how to use your clairsentience, your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, so that you can actually hear the voice of your intuition and learn to trust your gut. So that's going to be on Monday, April 18th. So please, please sign up for that now. All right. Thank you so much, Tina. So I'm happy to introduce all of that to you so you can join us at Portal to Ascension. And now I want to tell you a little bit about our guest today. You've probably all heard of her. Okay. Kathleen Marden. We're going to be discussing all things extraterrestrial. But actually, before I even share the introduction about her, I want to kind of give us all a reminder. Avon, many of you have met him. He's my tall, white extraterrestrial Zeta that I actually found in 2012 at the very first live Portal to Ascension conference. So in honor of that, I always bring Yvonne on to our UFO shows. All right. So now everyone just take a deep breath. Good. And then let it all out. And then let's just take another centering deep breath in and let it all out. And let's just ask that the information that comes through today be for the highest good of all concerned, that it could be information that is very timely for you, that helps to open up areas of receptivity for you, helps you give you information that will help you on your journey of life. All right. And that being said, thank you for being here. So Kathleen Marden is an author, an on-camera expert, consultant, international conference presenter, experiencer advocate, intergenerational experiencer, and hypnosis practitioner. So since the 90s, she has researched the perplexing nature of UFOs and the non-human entities associated with highly advanced aerial vehicles via her own groundbreaking research and investigations. And she's also actually the 2021 recipient of the International UFO Conference Lifetime Achievement Award. So, for 30 years, she has engaged in scientifically focused research on ET experiencers, the history of government involvement in major UFO studies, and U.S. government's obfuscation of the facts. In other words, calling everyone conspiracy theorists, not diving into it. So during this time, she was closely associated with the Mutual UFO Network. She, as the director of the Experiencer Research Team and the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Encounters, as both the research consultant and advisory board member. And the last thing I'm really going to tell you about it is her interest in UFOs and contact began in 1961 when her aunt and uncle, the renowned Betty and Barney Hill, had a close encounter and subsequent abduction in New Hampshire's White Mountains. And so since then, she has conducted extensive multi-year investigation into their experiences, and her several books and the 60th anniversary edition of Captured are available for purchase. So we'll look at her website in a bit. Kathleen, it is just such an honor to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you too, Joan.
Well, it really is. I think I was, I'm an angel experiencer and also an extraterrestrial experiencer. And so I try to combine them both. Not hard to do.
It's a great idea.
It is what it is. So, God, you have such an extensive history, and I'm wondering, like, how old were you when you first, like, Betty, that was your aunt and uncle, right? So, how old were you when you first found out about their experiences?
Well, I found out about their experience when I was 13 years old. I had just gotten off the school bus after school, walked into the house, and my mother was on the telephone with my Aunt Betty and having a very unusual conversation about the close encounter they had had with a flying saucer the night before and how they were afraid that they might have been contaminated because the craft came so close to them. It was only about 100 feet away from my uncle as he was standing in a field.
Okay, so I don't know. I feel like I'm hearing this for the first time. In other words, this was like you came home from school the day after it happened.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a different kind of energy. It wasn't even something that you heard about. So did you have, like, what was your response to that?
I had learned in school that none of the planets in our solar system were inhabited. So I thought, oh, this is different. And so I started talking to my mother about the solar system and became very interested in that and getting a telescope and that sort of thing. And, I was a really curious kid. I wanted to learn all that I possibly could about this. Within 2 days, we went to Betty's and Barney's house. And I was able to hear the story from Betty's own mouth and to observe the watches that no longer worked, that were working the night that they were taken to craft, because they didn't know at that time that they had been taken to craft. But also the shiny spots on the trunk of the car that hadn't been there on the night of their trip home, but were there when they arrived home. And they had a magnetic field around them. A compass that was placed over those spots would spin and spin. When it was moved away, the needle would drop down. So there was physical evidence. The tops of Barney's shoes were so deeply scraped that he had to buy new shoes. Betty's dress was torn in several places. And there were so many questions. And so, being a very curious kid, my favorite author was the Nancy Drew series.
Oh, mine too. Mine too. Absolutely. I wanted to be Nancy Drew. If I could just solve mysteries, I'd be in my element. So there you were solving. So to you, it was really a mystery. You put on your little investigative hat and it was happening to your aunt and uncle, and
Mhm.
I'm guessing that it rang true to you then, like,
Well, yes, absolutely. I had no
because you saw
reason to doubt them.
evidence. And
Mhm.
this was before people, I think they were what some of the first abduction experiencers, so it wasn't as if people had been talking about this before.
Right. They were the first scientifically investigated case of alien abduction, is what they called it in those days.
Interesting. I bet some of it happened because they knew that the researcher in you was going to take over and take this even public. Because as I was reading your story, I was thinking about, well, is this generational with extraterrestrial abductions? Do they take families of people and I can imagine they can see into the future. So it's not so far fetched that it was like, well, this story is going to go worldwide because we're going to bring her niece into it.
Maybe they did. Maybe they're behind this. But, our studies show that 60% of the experiencers uh, have knowledge that other family members have been taken as well. So, it's probably higher than that, but a lot of families simply don't discuss it.
60%. So did your family discuss it?
Not really. I mean, it was when I was 17, my mother and I had memories of being taken to craft. When
Ah,
a
okay.
UFO landed on my grandparents' farm, 160 feet from my childhood home. And my mother and I recalled being on craft. There were two people who observed that craft. And so my mother and I discussed it later, but not immediately after it happened, because the way my 17-year-old mind put this all together was that, well, I must have needed surgery. So my mother must have had a surgical team go into my bedroom in the middle of the night. And so set up a table, and I was on the table undergoing surgery in the middle of the night so I wouldn't be frightened. She wouldn't take me to the hospital for it. I mean, it was completely naive and crazy. I mean, it's even crazier than the idea that I was actually taken to craft, and that was the cover memory. I always saw those entities around me, but I couldn't see their faces for a long time. And then finally, in a huge abreaction, emotional release, I remembered what they looked like. And they
Well,
were the
so
same
how old are you? How old are you at this period of time?
in that period of time.
Mhm.
I was 17.
Okay.
Mhm.
So your memories don't go back before Betty and Barney's
Only
experience.
under hypnosis. Under
Okay, so
hypnosis, I was 3, and I remembered very clearly what I was doing, the ET standing in the doorway on this little round room in the craft, and a girl who was older than me, probably by 3 or 4 years, maybe yeah, maybe more, 5 years. And she looked exactly like me, only older. And so that is a curious memory as well.
especially for a 3-year-old to have these memories. So your family was kind of a contact, well, an abductee family at that point. Why do you think that they kind of took your family?
Well, what they told me was that initially they uh, picked up a lot of kids on the back lands of farms, and adults too, in various areas when they were camping or hunting or fishing or whatever. And then they were able to select the family groups who had the characteristics that they wanted. And they told me when I was on the table, when they took me, that they had to take tissue samples because they were concerned about environmental toxins. And so they wanted to check the level of toxicity in my body. Now, it wasn't until later that I was able to comprehend what that meant. I grew up uh, probably a half mile downhill from what ended up being a Superfund site. And I was 20 miles away from a nuclear base.
Okay, so what they were protecting you. They were
Yeah,
looking to heal you
they were.
and
They were
protect you
protecting
from
and
that.
healing.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so your 17-year-old self kind of picked that up, even though you didn't exactly understand why.
Right. That's the information they gave me. Hmm. And I
And did
always
they
wondered why. What was I eating something that was toxic or what? I didn't know that barrel factory would become a Superfund site, that it was polluting the lake and the stream and the wells.
right? But nevertheless, they chose to come and get you and help heal you.
Yes.
And did they ever give you an indication of why they might choose you to do this, or did you have any feeling like maybe you were compelled to because obviously you've been compelled in some way, shape, or form to
Yeah.
bring this out, but I'm thinking, did you have a sense of why you were being compelled, or what they might want humanity to know through you, or things like that?
Well, I can tell you that when I was on craft, they projected the most profound sense of love that I had ever felt. Nothing like I'd ever felt on this planet unless they were nearby. And they told me that I was family as well, that they loved me, and that I had a job to do, and that job was to be a communicator between them and humanity. So that's what I've been doing. But for many, many years, I would not admit that I've had these experiences myself because of the ridicule factor. And so I was just a researcher, and I worked on 3 major studies on about 5,000 experiencers, and um, we had open-ended questions as well as true and false or fill in whatever. And I discovered that others were given the same messages that I was given. So then I would talk about them, but not personally. Um, so that's what I did for years. That I don't care anymore. People who ridicule are simply ignorant.
So if you came in through with your science, like objective. I never approached UFOs from an objective point of view. I've always had a relationship, intimate point of view. But I can imagine coming from that other point of view might have been a little more difficult.
Well, from the scientific objective, uh, it well, you have to be very, very careful. You have in your work, and I think that was extraordinarily important to look at all this scientifically, to look for evidence, and to do all of the work that I did over my lifetime. But I've done the work that not only I, but the people that I've worked with have done is extraordinary. It gives a tremendous amount of evidence that we didn't have previously. It's not anecdotal evidence, it is scientific evidence. And so that's really important. We had PhD scientists, social scientists working on these studies. But now I just feel like I've reached the age where I can sit back and relax and enjoy what I'm doing, to take some of that pressure off myself and just live the life that I want to live.
Very, very interesting, and which you're, of course, being guided to do. But,
Yeah.
I know that there's been a dichotomy between the science, the researchers, the very specific, detailed, that you can prove. And
Mhm.
then there's the experiencers and the channelers who've had, like with Betty or now even yourself, it's almost sometimes felt like to me like they were speaking 2 different languages.
Yes, in fact, I have to tell you, I was a nuts and bolts researcher from the time I started my own investigations in about 1990 until about 2011. And then in 2011, when we did our first study on experiencers, I realized that the nuts and bolts science acceptance of what all of this was dishonest, because it wouldn't accept the interdimensional part of it. The light orbs that are present in over 60% of experiencers' homes, those conscious orbs that sometimes pop into non-humans, they're just sort of at the membrane between dimensions. They say that they see us as orbs too, until we're in the same dimension. So, that was something that I knew, and I was not going to ignore any longer. The feeling that something unseen is walking on the bed. Over 75% said that they had memories of this, and conscious recall of this happening in their homes. And I was not going to ignore it and say they are just imagining it. And
Right.
that's when my work really took off, when I moved beyond the nuts and bolts.
Do you do so? I read now you do regressions for people, right? Also.
Yes.
So then you've also then had stories from many of your clients, I'm guessing, who've had these experiences as well.
Yes. Yes. From clients. I studied under Dolores Cannon. So I did a quantum healing hypnosis technique. And I was also studied and was certified years before that as a hypnotherapist when I lived in New Hampshire.
So then as you were doing that kind of work, then you're coming to terms with your science investigation research, right? And now you're telling the truth about what you've seen. Being an experiencer versus a scientific investigator. So I'm a chiropractor. I should be upfront. I'm a chiropractor.
Oh,
And so my whole life's training, but I really had to deal with the medical doctor opinion about chiropractic. And so I just went specifically very much with what you call people's experiences. Okay, so rather than defending the science of chiropractic against the science of Western medicine, I defended the experiences that people had of getting better. Because honestly, you can't take that away by your science. So I've been an experiencer inside and out, I suppose, is my point. So
Yeah.
now that we know you've been an experiencer, and I really think it's exciting to see some of what you were saying. You and I, before we got on, we were talking about ways then that the experiences can be proven through research, and you were sharing with me a little bit about how the investigation into the Council of Eight that you were part of. Maybe you could share a little bit about that investigation with us.
Yes. Well, in 2016, I was introduced to a man named Kevin Briggs, and he had been having experiences with ETs since he was a boy in England. He grew up, he became a police officer, and he got married to a woman who was a professor at a university. And then they moved to the United States more than 20 years ago. And he came to me for hypnosis. And so during this hypnosis session, he had been a paper boy back in England. He had missing time after he saw a landed craft. And so he remembered being taken to craft, and he met the Council of Eight on the craft. So the Council of Eight is 8 beings. 7 of them are fifth and sixth dimensional entities. There are 2 tall human types, 1 blue avian, 1 tall white, a mantis type, about a 5-foot tall gray, and another gray who is taller than that. And then there is a ninth dimensional who is oversees the council. It's called the Council of Eight because he's one of the members, but he hasn't had a physical body for thousands of years, he says. So this was interesting. I had always kind of scoffed at channeling over the years. People had come to me with their channeled messages, and there wasn't any consistency except for in one, and that was with Paul Hamden from Australia, who had sent ETs to heal me in 2012. So,
And did
Kevin,
they?
yes,
Did
I
they
did.
heal you? Okay,
Yes,
well, I'll ask you about that in a minute
you
then.
could ask about that. Yes. Okay. So, Kevin invited a team of researchers and investigators to go to his house once a month. We met for a period of 2 years, and we got to meet the Council of Eight members, and we took our equipment to measure their heat energy, other things, equipment we took. And I recorded and transcribed all of the meetings. So we were able to, when the fifth and sixth dimensionals came into the room, we had a laser thermometer, and we were able to measure about a 5-degree temperature increase where they were standing. When the ninth dimensional came in, it jumped up to about 8 degrees. So that was an incredible increase. And Kevin was soaking wet when the session ended. His clothing was wet. There was perspiration dripping off his face. And he was very tired at the beginning of this. He'd never channeled before. So this was a first for him too. But the Council of Eights had come to him over the years, giving him telepathic messages, and they wanted him to meet with us. So we met, and we were able to ask questions. We each were able to bring a couple of questions to the meetings and ask them and receive very specific answers from the Council of Eight. Aside from that, what they wanted to do is to prove their existence to us. So they selected each of us, and they told us when they would show their craft and communicate with us individually. And they did that. And the first time Zark came to me, and they have names. Zark is a 5-foot-tall gray scientist. So they arranged for me to meet him, but he jumped the gun. And my husband and I were driving to see my grandson perform at Disney Springs. I live in Florida. And Zark entered the truck we were driving in and started to communicate with me. I could feel this very strong electrical tingling sensation through my entire body. I grabbed a piece of paper, started furiously writing what he was telling me, and telepathically communicating with him, asking questions. And it's a good thing I did, because when he left, I had absolutely no memory of what was said. I think
So your husband didn't see him, right?
no.
Okay, but you heard him and you actually started writing it. Was this your first channeled experience? Like that you channeled?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it was.
And
It's not the
so
first telepathic communication that I'd had with ETs, but it's the first one I think that I had off craft. And the first, you might say, channeling, I called it telepathic communication. And so then he was supposed to meet with me and show me a craft. And I said, okay, I live on a lake. I want you to come at 5 o'clock in the morning, my time, and show me a craft up close over the lake. So the day came,
oh my
and I was
God.
out sitting on my deck looking out at the lake, and I suddenly feel this very strong tingling sensation all over again. I know he's there. And I see about a 35 to 40-foot circle of turbulence on the lake. And I was thinking to myself, is there a craft under the water that's going to rise up? No, it didn't. So is this an invisible craft over the water creating the turbulence? Well, I asked about that, and what I was told is that it was probably just Zark's energy that was doing that. So, oh, that's what he said. So that
So have you
was
seen him? Have you actually been able to sort of visualize him in your inner eye, or like you know what he
um,
feels like?
I know what he feels like. I know what he looks like because I have seen him in a dream just before I woke up in the morning. When you have those
Right,
hypnopompic dreams that uh, just seem too real to have been dreams.
right.
And yeah, I saw him in one of those dreams, and Kevin confirmed that that is what his appearance is like.
So once you got connected with the channel, the group of eight, the council of eight, and you were in these investigations, now you're also channeling at least one of them.
Yes, I could. I was
Say that.
supposed to channel at one of these meetings, but I was there were new people that had come into the group, and I was just too nervous. I knew that two of them were skeptics, and so I couldn't channel. So Kevin ended up doing it. But that later that day, I had two women who were staying at my house because they came from a distance away,
Mhm.
and I channeled in front of them that night.
You know, that's interesting. I channel, and I know that there's times I'm too embarrassed. If I'm with certain people, I can't. I just can't. Or if I think they're better. So I've had that issue also. So now the investigator channeler that you are, I'm finding this so fascinating. I am enjoying this amazing. Okay, so let's see what we have here. You see with the third eye, she saw the blue beings. They were in the etheric, but I saw them like a dim light compared to the light we see in 3D. So this is an interesting experience. Have you seen them since then? Do you now continue, Kathleen, to kind of have these dreams or experience them?
Well, I meditate, and
Hmm.
I had difficulty until I was able to move over into my right brain. When I was at that
Hmm.
left brain scientist, nothing was working for me. But as I moved to the right brain through group guided meditation, I developed that ability. And now I can see and communicate with entities if my meditation is successful. And sometimes someone just comes into my office or wherever I am. I feel that very strong tingling sensation through my entire body and might communicate with me telepathically. But it doesn't happen that often. But I always, it seems, have something going on with my crown chakra where I feel tingling sensations in the crown chakra quite often, especially when the information that's being given is accurate or they agree with it.
So I have to say something. I never expected this conversation to go in this direction, and I am totally loving what I'm hearing. Everyone needs to go out and get this book of yours because I know you reveal this in your book. You do
Yes.
talk about it, and you talk about the Council of Eight. So I'm guessing then that the your research proved that these interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings existed
Yes,
and proved it in
absolutely.
your mind.
Yes, we had scientific evidence in terms of their presence, of what we observed when they were going to show us craft or communicate with us, and also with the temperature increase in the section of the room where they were. And also, they showed me orbs when we'd ask for something, they would show us. So we were very happy about that. And they told us that they would not show themselves in the physical until we had actually raised our vibration high enough. And they said, when it's raised high enough, you'll be able to see us. And so I'm still waiting for that. I haven't seen them yet, except for one ninth dimensional who looked like a translucent angel.
So I totally understand, because my experience with the angelic realms is that they have said that as we raise, for us to see them, we need to raise our vibration so we can match up to them, and that even though they can come down to us if we see them. But I want you to know that I have actually seen an ET with my physical eye, but
Mm-hmm.
I was in, a plant medicine state. And
Oh.
so I have also heard from other people in that state that they have seen, and I was very surprised. It was a
Mm-hmm.
tall white in my backyard. I guess it was family of my friend Avon. And
Mm-hmm.
it was two ETs. One of them, I couldn't tell what they were. The other looked like a boxy white cereal package. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you know what I mean, the head was sort of square rectangular box. And I asked, well, how did you get here? And the communication I got was by a saucer taxi from 29. They lived under near 29 Palms. There's a big base up there, military base, and they said there was an
Mm-hmm.
underground base. They lived back there, and they took like some kind of saucer ship taxi.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. So we have some interesting questions. The one before this was, have you been on the ship? And actually, we'd love for you to describe the ship. And then the second question is, well, how did you cope with it? Did you feel fear? And this person is actually feeling terror sometimes. So if we can address that one too, this is exciting.
Yeah.
We're all excited to hear what you have to say.
I used to feel terror. I walked with trepidation at night. I thought that I was being put on a table and treated like a lab rat. And that's because the early researchers were telling all of us that that's what was happening to us, even though I had no memory of that. That is what we were being told by the experts. And I was terrified. I didn't want it to happen. I thought I was being exploited. And uh, over time, I realized that that simply was not true, because I had hypnosis. I had conscious recall for a lot of years. And when they would come into my room, I would have a fight or flight response. I'd be awake a lot of times. And then, everything after that was so terrifying. They look different. They feel different. I was afraid of them and what they
And
were
I
doing.
understand completely.
But after years of doing my own research and investigation of all of this and having hypnosis where I was not led to feeling this love that was coming from them, this concern about our planet, about nuclear weapons, about me and any toxins that might have been absorbed into my own body. After I was healed by them, and I found out that many, many others, 45% of the abductee group in one of our studies of 516 experiencers in all, the abductee, 45% of the abductees said they had asked for healing and received it. You know, that they're not being exploited. In Free's study, the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation study on close to 5,000 experiencers now, and I worked on the early parts of that, we discovered that 83% would not end their experiences today if they were given that choice. On MUFON
That's a lot.
study that I just mentioned, it was 71% of the experiencers overall who wouldn't end it. And on the abductee group, it was 74% who would not end it. And, MUFON is kind of an investigative group where people might be frightened, might think they're having bad experiences a lot, have never had hypnosis, that sort of thing. When people go there, you think that they're going to say, no, I want to stop this. But I was really surprised to find out that they don't want it to end, and that
Well,
they're growing older and they're receiving messages, they're understanding more, they're being healed. So that's a very good.
yeah. So the frightening aspects of being an abductee, for the reasons you thought you were being taken, turned out to not be the reasons, but only because we couldn't communicate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's really fascinating. So not only would they not want to stop it, but I'm guessing they also feel they've benefited from this experience. Like, I feel like some of my intuitive gifts, my gifts of seeing and sight, have been especially more pronounced because of my contact with extraterrestrials. I'm positive of it, because I don't think I had as deep gifts as I had years ago. And I read somewhere that people who've had contact with extraterrestrials have more telepathic skills.
Yes, we communicate telepathically on craft. They say that telepathy is the universal language.
Do you remember being on craft? Like, do you have visions of what it looked like on the craft? Could you share a few of those?
Yes, I remember being in a kind of a wide corridor. And I've been on two different crafts. One of them, I guess, is a disc-shaped craft, oval or circular. And inside the craft, everything was just really clean, not a lot of equipment that I could see or anything like that. One time I was in some kind of thick gel-like substance, and it seemed like I was in like a drawer, and they pulled me out. They had to take me someplace where I needed protection, and so they took me out of that and took me to that front part of the craft. I also have been into like small rooms on the craft where they perform certain procedures on me, and there would be generally two down by my feet and at least one or two up by my head. And there was one entity that always accompanied me. He was my escort and would give me information and that sort of thing. So that would be, when I'd be on a table having some kind of a physical procedure, or they would make me feel like I was tingling very strongly and saying that they were trying to raise my vibrational frequency.
I love this. We're speaking the same language. Why do you refer to them as entities? Is there a particular reason for that term for you?
Well, I don't want to call them extraterrestrials because I'm not certain that they are. Maybe some are extraterrestrials and some are interdimensional. So they seem to be interdimensional anyway, regardless of where they're coming from. But in my book, Forbidden Knowledge, I wrote about information I'd received from the granddaughter of Navy Rear Admiral Herbert Knowles, who had known my aunt and uncle Betty and Barney Hill. He lived in Maine. And I had been attempting to acquire more information about Admiral Knowles and had spoken about this publicly. I was looking for a family member during my research for the book Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience. I was not able to locate any of that family. And finally, Admiral Knowles' granddaughter came into a conference where I was speaking and handed me a thick packet of information. And in there were letters between Wilbert Smith, the Canadian, brilliant Canadian scientist who was their UFO guy, and Admiral Knowles. And what I was able to discover is that they were attempting to find scientific verification for information that was given to a woman in Maine named Frances Swan. And the government was involved in this. The information that Admiral Knowles received was so scientifically credible and way beyond the level of education or knowledge that Frances Swan had, that he ended up giving that packet and a letter to Margaret Chase Smith, who was the US Senator from Maine. And then that went to Dwight Eisenhower in 1954. And then the top brass from Washington ended up going up to the Knowles home to study Frances Swan. And then this study continued secretly. So that information wasn't anywhere until it was handed to me by Admiral Knowles' granddaughter. And she told me that his phone was tapped. The family all knew that and gave me permission, actually asked me to talk about this. And I kept it secret for years because it was taboo. But as I've moved on in my knowledge, I decided to release it. And it's incredible. The information given by the ETs in 1954 about wanting to help our planet and our people. Their concerns, as they are now, were nuclear proliferation, nuclear detonation of weapons. They said, and this is why I wonder if they're interdimensionals, that when we detonate a thermonuclear weapon, that tears into the membranes between the dimensions and causes destruction into other dimensions. Also, the information they gave was about how we needed to care for our environment. We ignored it and see where we are now. And they offered to teach us, to give us their technology. But we had to all agree to share and share equally and work together as nations. Each of us would have a little piece of the puzzle. And our governments refused.
Right.
So that's what happened in 1954. But that was the thing that spurred me on to continue with this line of research. And now, since I speak to people all over the world, to give everyone this information to try to save our planet. I think we're in a critical point. And for years, experiencers have been telling me that they feel like they have some kind of knowledge locked up inside. And now they feel that we're on the precipice and something big is going to happen. They don't know what, but they know that they have an important role in this. And so I'm just sharing the knowledge that I've been able to acquire. And in Forbidden Knowledge, you'll read 120 of our questions and answers from the council. Very specific answers.
I think it's really fascinating. I did a deep dive into the book already, and I'm fascinated not by the book, but by you so much. It's like, wow, that you managed to get past that logical, rational, scientific mind to open up to the channeling aspect of it. And now, of course, your research is probably exponential off the chart. This is probably exactly what they wanted from you, to open up to this side, and this is invaluable for us. And I think you are a role model for that other aspect of the MUFON investigators who are purely the science. I think people are called to research the extraterrestrial questions, whether they know it or not, and whether they get to the point you have or not. They've still been called to do this. I think it's very special.
I do
So,
too. I think it's extraordinarily important. And I was MUFON's director of experiencer research for 10 years, and I stepped down about a year ago to pursue this end, the spiritual part of it, more thoroughly. And so I am still a consultant, but I'm really taking a deep dive into this fascinating part of it.
this is really delightful for me. So, guys, if you have any other last minute questions, we did have someone ask if either of us have had any NDEs, near death experiences. I haven't per se, but I've had my own contact with angelic beings and ETs. But so, have you had an NDE? That was the question.
I don't know if it was an NDE or not, but I was extraordinarily ill back in 2014. And I should have gone to the doctor sooner, but it was over the holidays. It was just finally, my mother came to me, my deceased mother came to me in one of those dreams just before I woke up in the morning.
Hmm.
And it seemed real, too real to have been a dream.
Of
And
course.
she said, I'm not going to take you with me today, but I might be back in a few days to take you with me. And then I thought, ooh, I guess I'd better go to the hospital. So I had my husband take me in.
Oh
And
my God.
yes, my blood at that point, I was so dehydrated from this stomach flu that my blood, they said, was like crankcase oil.
Do you think you've had like a walk-in experience? That the side of you that's been channeling and telepathic communication now and precognitive dreaming, do you think maybe you're more of a walk-in now? Is there a part of you that's different than what you were before?
Well, it's that tingling that I have. Um, I don't know if it's a walk-in, if there's somebody there, or what it is. I know when I do QHHT hypnosis and the healing part of it, something is channeling down through me. I hold my arms out over a person. They might be 2 feet above the person. That tingling sensation is moving down through my hands, and they feel heat below, and they're healed. So, I mean, there's something new there. There's something going on with
There
me,
is
and I love it. It
something new,
feels good.
something very new with you because, and my experience of you is really taken a huge, like, oh my God, there's so much to connect with about you that you've opened up something that wasn't there before. You were always
Absolutely.
fascinating, interesting, brilliant. And now there's even a new element that's come in. Why don't you? And I take that as a compliment. I mean,
Yes,
just
absolutely.
exciting because
Thank you.
I talk to angels. So I'm
Mhm.
coming from that perspective as opposed to the Dr. Joan who aced her biology and microbiology. Okay.
Mhm.
That one isn't talking. So, all right, tell everyone what you're doing now, how they can find you, and upcoming events.
My upcoming events are on my website. You can purchase autographed copies of my books there. You can book a consultation. I keep the price very low because a lot of people can't afford it. So I just talk to people about whatever they want to talk about. A lot of experiencers come to me and just want a little support. So I'm going to be speaking in Pennsylvania at the Butler Paranormal Conference in April, in May out in McMinnville, Oregon, in July, the 1st of July, over the fourth weekend of the 4th in Roswell, New Mexico. A week later at the MUFON International Symposium in Denver. And then in September, there were two, one in Exeter, New Hampshire, and one in Michigan. And the clickable links to find out more information about all of those are on my website, along with some free articles that you can read as well. So it's all there, Kathleen-Marden.com. You can see it right there on the screen. And so that's that's my story.
Wow. Quite a story, Kathleen. Really exciting to do a deep dive with you. I've just been so fascinated. And I
Thank you.
appreciate you so much. I appreciate that 13-year-old girl who's like on the phone, like hearing your aunt was just taken. Something weird, because in those days, all I saw pictures of were the National Enquirer showed like UFETs as like these little, it was big eyes and stuff. So I can just imagine like what that would have been like at 13 to hear. And then now you're channeling them, you're bringing all aspects of the subject to light. So well
Yes.
done.
Thank
Well
you. And I
done.
just so much appreciate this gift that's been given to me. It makes me feel happier than I've ever felt in my life.
I can feel it. Okay. I feel it all the way over here. It has been just wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that all of our followers are just going to be really happy with this interview. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And
Thank you.
maybe one day I'll see you on the ships.
Well, maybe we will. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right? That would be so fun, guys, if we all said, okay, Kathleen, we'll see you tonight on the ships and we'll continue our interview. All right. Thank you so much, love.
And
Ciao.
thank you.
Guys, okay, I am so fascinated, but I could feel her joy. And I mean, I have actually met Kathleen years ago, and I could just feel that how her life has changed with just connecting now and this deep dive that she's been doing. So what a great interview. All right, guys. So thank you so much for being with us. Do not forget, I have my upcoming event. Maybe Tina will show it again. Coming up, how to use your intuitive gifts that you were born with. And that does include telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, how to learn to trust your gut every time so we can all really thrive during these days. So that's on Portal to Ascension. I hope to see you all there. And meanwhile, please like, subscribe, and share. So we love you all so much. Thank you for being with us. And again, I'll see you all next time. Have a great, beautiful, fantastic day. Bye for now.